Hello and welcome to another episode of the Danielle K Show. You guys, I am so excited. I was gonna say I have a friend in my house, but you're not in my house. We're actually virtual. She's in LA. I'm in Miami. Danielle Canty is here on the Danielle K Show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And already we have so much in common.
I know. I was like, we're both Danielles. You know, you're gonna hear a lot on this show. So I actually had found. I'm gonna just kind of start where I'd found you is through BossBabe. But I know that's kind of where you started, but I want to actually hear more about like your story, and you're a new mom too, right? A new mom. So I want to hear more about your story of really kind of sharing how you overcame limiting beliefs, how you created your big business, why you decided to exit, and how is it being a mom? Like we're going to talk about all of those things because I'm a mom too, and I feel like a lot of times we think like we can't achieve success or we can't have this and that, or, you know, like I'm just a hairstylist, so I can't have big dreams or whatever it is. And you created such massive success for yourself. And now you coach, you coach primarily women.
Yes.
So now you have your coaching business and everything, but let's go way back. Let's go way back to Danielle before you built anything. Where did you start?
Hey you guys, it's Danielle K. White. Welcome to the Danielle K. White Show. On this podcast, what you can expect is anything from fashion, fitness, hair, and yes, even family. I'm the creator of Natural Beat Real Hair Extensions and Isla Hand-Tied Hair. But what I'm really passionate about is sharing other people's stories, how they went from the pit to the peak, how entrepreneurs build the success that you see online today. So definitely tune into this podcast for a good story and a little bit of fashion and a little bit of hair and beauty mixed in.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you asked this too. And I just love being like really vulnerable. I feel like podcast is such a nice space just to be really vulnerable and tell true stories because social media is such a highlight reel. And it's like, what can I fit in 60 seconds? And this is not a 60-second story.
Right.
Because, you hear a lot from entrepreneurs. They're like, oh, I was a born entrepreneur. I was the kid like selling candy and doing all this stuff. I was the complete opposite, Danielle. Like, I am not joking. Like, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was.
Right.
I grew up in this little town in the UK. There were more sheep than there were people. It was a very unadventurous life. And I just was focused on school and that was it. You know, you got good grades, you went to school and that was it. And when they sat us down and like, what do you want to be when you grow up? They put this like sheet in front of you, which I actually would love to know what it's on that sheet now. It's probably like YouTube blogger and all this stuff. But in my day, it was like doctor, policewoman, nurse, lawyer. Right. And I was just like, but none of them resonate with me. But I knew I wanted to help people. And so long story short, I decided I wanted to be a chiropractor because my dad had seen a chiropractor before and this chiropractor was so enthusiastic. And I think this is like the really key thing which happens for like kids when they're like really impressionable is if they meet someone who loves their job, the kids will naturally gravitate to those careers because they see it as like, wow, this person's really enthusiastic about their job. And so that's what happened to me. I was like, right, I want to be a chiropractor because this guy loves what he does. So I went off to university, studied and graduated as a chiropractor. And I did love it. I was helping people every single day and it was great. But what started kind of brewing inside me was that ambition, that being unapologetically ambitious. And I remember one day saying to my boss, I was like 23 at the time. And I was like, oh, I really want to own more clinics. I really want to do all this stuff. And he said to me, Danielle, he literally said to me, he was like, I think he was about 10 years older than me. He was like, I'm really worried about your ambition. I'm worried you're going to get hurt. And I remember thinking like, I'm pretty sure you would not have said this if one of the guys had said it to you. But thank goodness he did because it really set me on this track of being like, I'd never been that rebellious, but this really made me rebellious. I kind of had that like F you spirit in me at that point. I was like, do you tell me what to do? And so I really realized that this was like 2014, 2015. And there really wasn't that many entrepreneurial women showcasing their, there were entrepreneurial women, but they weren't having big personalities online. You weren't really seeing the behind the scenes of their businesses or anything like that. And so I thought that I was really lonely. I was like, well, hang on a minute. There's not really many people like me. And so how do I find them? And so at that time, I ended up running paths with Natalie, who became my business partner in BossBabe. And we co-founded BossBabe because we both felt the same way. We were both like, hang on a minute, we're really ambitious women, But where are these conversations? Like, where do we feel at home? Where are we allowed to say, I want to earn more money? And if you think back to like then 2018, 2019, like it kind of was like, it was kind of a little bit gross if you were like, as a woman, being like, well, I want to earn more money. Like people were looking down on that. We were like, well, we can't be the only people. And so that's really where BossBabe was born, because we wanted to create this unapologetic, like unapologetically ambitious community where women could really come together and thrive. And that was like the real big journey into me starting into that online world. But let me tell you, it was full of bumps and twists and turns, because the things I had to overcome, and we can go into that, but the things that I had to overcome are that because I was not a natural entrepreneur. I did not know how to be on social media.
Oh, wow.
I had such bad imposter syndrome. It was like the biggest, I would say it was probably the biggest personal transformation. Yes, I built a business, but it was also the biggest personal transformation that I went through.
So you started, how long were you a chiropractor for?
I was a chiropractor for like 9 or 10 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because also I did what, I when I decided I wanted to build BossBabe, because I'm not a natural entrepreneur, right? I was almost like a little bit risk adverse. So I was like, hang on a minute. Like, how do I go? Like I did have thriving chiropractic businesses and I was doing great there. And I didn't want to just turn my back on that straight away and just go into this online world that I didn't really truly understand. So I actually did both of them for a little minute.
Was your chiropractic, did you have your own, you said you had 5 different spaces? Okay, so you were an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah,
you were.
I started to become an entrepreneur at that point. Yeah. So when I was like 23, 24, that's when I started to become an entrepreneur and started like building these chiropractic businesses at the same time. And then he was having this that's why guy I was like doing them with had this conversation with me. But ultimately, when you're in chiropractic businesses, which I'm sure you have people who have brick and mortar businesses, it's really difficult to scale them without borrowing a lot of money.
Right.
Because you're reinvesting so much. And so that was a really big challenge for me around like how I could scale the businesses and kind of, allow my risk. Whereas when you come into the online space, it's so much easier to do that.
Right. When did you transition from chiropractor to starting online? Was that 2015?
So everyone, I think, has this pivotal moment in their lives where they, are going one way, like you're going down a certain track, you're going down a path, and something happens which creates this crossroad. And for me, that crossroad happened in 2016 when my dad had a really bad skiing accident. So we were skiing in the Alps and he crashed at 68.9 mile an hour. Oh, wow. And ice and bone don't go great at that speed. And so he had this really, really awful, terrible skiing accident, and he was helicoptered off, transferred to hospitals, told he wasn't been able to set up for 3 months. And in that moment, that was my crossroads moment where at that point, I did have some form of financial success with my chiropractic side of the businesses. But what I was missing was freedom. I wasn't able, I was living my life in these, clinic hours, 15-minute appointments. I had to be in a set location at every time. And that's when I realized, I don't think this is for me anymore. I don't think this is how I want to be building the lifestyle that I dream of. And that's when I then started to pivot online and started to think about online. But I didn't know the first thing about appearing online, because at that point, marketing for me, you'll know this too, different businesses need different marketing criteria. They need to be on different platforms. They need different ways of doing it. And so if you're in a brick and mortar business, you're really focusing on SEO and you're really focusing on local efforts to bring people into your branch. Instagram doesn't really work that well for local businesses, because it doesn't matter that you're reaching people in America or if you're in the UK.
Right.
They
you need local business.
Anyway. Yeah. So I was like, I have not got time for Instagram. I'm far too busy for Instagram. I prided myself that I was just on Facebook and leaning into this SEO stuff. But when I realized that actually I really wanted to branch out and I really wanted to build an online business. And so that was 2016 into 2017. That's when I started looking at, okay, Googling, how do I make money online?
It's crazy though. I feel like I love that you just touch base that everybody has like this pivot in their life when you're like, why am I sitting in this painful place and it's time to go? And usually it could be like a trauma or something that happens that makes you really evaluate like, why am I so working so hard and what am I going towards? So you kind of had to like let this piece of you die essentially. Like the chiropractor person that you're like, I'll just keep scaling. A lot of entrepreneurs, same thing happens in the hair industry. They're like, I'll just open more salons. And you're like, you're already like drowning in your current situation. The answer is not scale bigger. And so sometimes there's these moments of like, it's not defeat, but it's almost like by letting go, we feel defeated. Does that make sense? So when you transition, like talk on that, because you kind of like skimmed over it, but like there, you have this accident with your dad and you're like now you're like, I'm going to make this shit work. Like, this guy doesn't need to tell me that I can't be ambitious. Like talk about that pivot for you.
So what happens too is when we go back to that school conversation and like, what do you want to do? They ask you this when you're like 14 and 16 in the UK, because like by the time you're doing your we call them A-levels at 16, you're going to university or college at 18. And so a lot of you have to be on the right track. Like you can't all of a sudden decide that you want to do like a marketing degree, but you didn't do the right A-levels to get into that course, right? So really from the age of 14, 16, you're noticing. And so when I decided to do chiropractic, I was one person. And then when I decided to go down this new avenue, I was another. And there was so much shame in that. Like that was the biggest thing that came up for me was like, what a waste of time. I did this vocational degree. I spent all this money in school to become a chiropractor. And how dare I leave that behind? Like, and that's what really came up for me. And I remember not really telling anybody. I didn't really have a conversation. I mean, bear in mind, I'm in my 20s. I'm not even living at home anymore, but I didn't really want to have that conversation with my mom and dad. I'm actually married and then divorced and then married again. So my initial husband was a chiropractor too. And he was like, what are you doing? Like, we've done all this time in college. You've got clinics. Like, this is crazy. You don't know how to do anything else. And that was the other thing that came up with me. So it was a mixture of like shame. It was a mixture of imposter syndrome. Like, actually, can I do this? And then there was also that reality of like, I didn't know how to show up online. I didn't know how to build an Instagram account at that point. I didn't know how to do digital marketing or build email lists in that form. But what I did know, Danielle, is that the pain of staying where I was greater than the pain of pivoting. And I think each of us get to this point. We're either moving towards something or we're moving away from something. And I was moving away from something because I was just like, I cannot stay in this anymore. Like that skiing accident was such a wake-up call for me, being like, you have no freedom. You get, yes, you might have some money, you might have some savings, and you might be able to do these things, but you don't get to choose what you do every single day. You don't get to choose, oh, actually, I want to, move this around. Like if I'm moving 1 hour, that's 4 people who are affected by that. So I felt very imprisoned, but then I also felt very guilty for feeling like I felt imprisoned because I had a good life. And so I think this is what a lot of people run into, and then they stay in that because the world teaches us sometimes like, hey, don't be ungrateful, like be happy with what you've got. But ultimately, I think I just realized that I only get one life, and I want to make the most of that. And if I'm already, and the thought of doing that for another 30 years, 40 years, and the other piece as well that I really noticed was other people were getting I was having to, and I think this probably comes out in Enneagram. I'm a 3, which is an achiever, but I also have a bit of an 8, which is a challenger. I don't really like being told what to do, which I think most entrepreneurs are. And so I didn't like the fact that when I was in this chiropractic world, I was having to go to banks or I was having to go to other people to borrow and leverage, and normally men telling me what I could and couldn't do. And so that was a really big thing for me around taking back full control and being able to decide, right, this is my life. What do I want it to look like in 10 years time? And then going after that. But it wasn't an easy decision. It also didn't happen overnight. And I would say that I did almost like tiptoe stepping stones. Like I didn't just blow up my life and all of a sudden change. I was like, right, I'm unhappy. So how do I go about this and what can I start doing? And so essentially I would like moonlight. I would work my full-time job and then I would do evenings and weekends on these new ideas that I had in business. And I think this is the other thing that people don't talk about. I also tried a ton of other stuff, Danielle. Like before I ended up co-founding BossBabe, I was also like, okay, do I sell things on Amazon? What's network marketing? Like, what are all these
Right.
different ways that I could do? And so I think lots of people don't talk about that. And you hear that too with, some really successful entrepreneurs that you follow now, but they also did a ton of other stuff before they landed on the thing that works.
Right.
And so I just really tried to experiment with different ways of doing things, but allowing myself that grace to do it. But it wasn't easy. But I just kept focusing on like, well, I cannot stay where I am.
Where did you find success where you finally let go of all chiropractic?
In BossBabe.
In BossBabe.
We co-founded it. We launched in February 2018, but I didn't actually leave. And I talk about this a lot actually. I didn't actually leave chiropractic fully until September 2019 because I was also and I would encourage everyone to do this. Most people, when they're trying to build like a side hustle or something, they see their business as like completely different to their like main job.
Right.
But I kind of saw my salary as part of my business. And so an hourly rate of a chiropractor is quite high. And so I realized that me giving up my chiropractic early on was not the thing to do. And so I stayed in my job and then I would pay admin staff and I would run customer service, but I wasn't going to be the one answering emails. I could hire that for like $20 an hour. And I was like probably earning at that point, I don't know what it converts at, maybe like $200 an hour, something like that. So we just did that for a long time. And then we always like prioritized hiring. And then I slowly, once I my hourly rate became like, actually now I'm doing stuff in BossBabe, which is worth so much more and making us so much more money. And also I had a lot of energy. I was like in my 20s, no kids, working 80-hour weeks and just like happy as Larry.
You're like, it's fine. I got caffeine. Well, you know what's so crazy? I love that you're even sharing that aspect of it because it's like, I've coached like thousands of hairstylists and I like tell them, hey, you need to go after whatever your Hyatt ticket is. I'm like, but that doesn't mean you drop everything that you're doing. You still have to eat and live and breathe and all those things. And so they often think that they have to completely drop everything. And I'm like, no, like you'll go right back to that thing that you dropped because you have to sustain life. Right. So I love that you're even like sharing like, hey, I knew I had a bigger path. I knew I had a bigger vision, but it comes down to the facts and the numbers of where you're at, right? So I think a lot of visionaries, they lack that and they create these crazy stories in their mind. And it's like, well, how do you manifest that? How do you make that possible, right? You have this big dream, but guess what? Manifestation is only real if you're willing to do the work to get there. And I think that you touched beautifully on that, just explaining like, yeah, I didn't just like ditch chiropractic. I found my way out. I planned my exit, if you will, and then as BossBabe started to take off, then it probably became, you were able to like put all your passion and energy into that. So when you guys came up with the concept of BossBabe, like obviously it took a lot of trial and error and things like that. Like what was your whole concept? Like you just wanted to empower women to find success in whatever it was, or tell me a little bit of the background of that.
So essentially, Natalie and I were both lonely as like entrepreneurs. Like we were both in this phase around like, okay, we're really ambitious, but like no one really talks like we do. And we both had a lot of friends, back from school, etc. And so I think what happens is, you have your core friends that maybe you graduate college with, etc. And then you become really different. And then you have some of your work friends, you have your college friends. And then when you start becoming more of an entrepreneur, they look at you like you are absolutely crazy. They are just like, what? Like, what are you doing?
Like why aren't you just happy with where you're at?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you just be happy with what you're doing? And you're like, well, I am happy, but I also want
to grow.
And I enjoy this. Yeah. So that was a real conversation that we were having together, and we both really noticed that. And at the time, BossBabe Instagram account existed. So a lady called Alex had the Instagram account. It probably had like 200,000 followers at this point. Natalie was doing some work for them and she wanted to sell it. She wanted to move on.
Oh, okay.
So then me and Natalie were like, okay, what does this look like? So we knew that the brand, like the Instagram account existed, but everything you know from BossBabe now was us. So we decided that we would purchase the Instagram account and then build a membership. So a membership was the first thing that we ever launched. It was called the Society, where female entrepreneurs connect, build, and grow, because we were really our own avatars. And I think this is actually how a lot of businesses are born, is because if you have that problem, because all businesses are, is like solving a problem, right?
Right.
It's like someone has a problem and you have a better solution for it.
Right.
So we were like, well, if we have this continuous problem, how do we create the solution for it? And so we basically just built what we wanted. We were very selfish. We just built something that we wished existed. And fortunately, we were not the only people that felt like that at the time. And we built a community. And I think, in 2018, 2019, communities weren't really a thing at that point. They've become more important over these last few years, and I would say even more so now. Like people, if you watch what people are shopping, if you watch what's happening on TikTok at the moment with the boycott of Target, and how Ben and Jerry's are really kind of rallying people politically, like brands and products are so much more than just their product now. And I think that's what BossBabe really stood for. It wasn't just about, okay, pretty pink quotes. It was like, we stand for something. We stand for you having a place that you can be unapologetically ambitious in. And so, anyone building products now, I think you have to have something that you stand for and you stand against, versus just, oh, this is my beauty product, this is my fashion product. Like,
you got to build that culture.
People want something that they can belong to. And so that's what we really leveraged early on and very quickly. And I think that was probably a big part of our success.
What was your membership about? Like, could they join different levels, or how did they get in?
Yeah, it was a membership. We only had one level. It was, you could join monthly or you can join annually. And we had certain tactics, because annually you always want to be, whenever you have a membership, you always want majority of your people coming in annually where possible. And so it was for female entrepreneurs to connect with each other and build their businesses. And we would do success kits and we would leverage. My whole thing was, how do I the thing that I really stood for was, I at the time lived in the UK and I didn't have the network that I have now. And so I really wanted to get people to have I wanted to invite women to sit at tables that they possibly couldn't get into otherwise. So I would use my connections that I built via BossBabe to bring in people like Jamie Kern-Lima, who sold, It Cosmetics for 1.2 billion. And she came in and taught our group. Like Payal Kadakia, she sold ClassPass and she came in to teach something. And so you could join it for at that time, it's much more now, but you could join it for $29 a month.
Oh, wow.
And that was what was really important to me, was to allow women to come in and hear from these other hugely and wildly successful women, like what were their key takeaways.
Right.
And so that was the whole concept of it. And again, I think that if you're building something that really kind of stands on good ethics and good, this is the value that we're offering, you're normally able to break through on a market. But also you have to just communicate it really well. And when you also get community behind you, then that's when really things start spiraling, because people will share your stuff, they'll talk to other people about it, and bring more people into the brand.
Yeah. So how many years did you have that? You sold out?
I exited in 2023, so I was there for 5 years.
Okay.
And, just decided that Natalie and I really saw different visions for the brand. And so I decided I had a few other things that I really wanted to do. And so I exited, and then 18 days later, I found out I was pregnant. So I swapped one baby
so
for
timing.
another.
that was your baby being like, Mom, now is a good time. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, I literally, and it's so funny. I often think about that, because I'm also a Virgo, and I'm kind of a bit of a A-type personality. I'm a planner. So I genuinely think if I would have always said that it was never the right time for a baby. I'm like, no, another year, I'm working another year, and now is not the right time. So I think he was just like, here's my window.
Was he a surprise?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I've had one of those. Well, I've had 4 of those, but my last one was a surprise. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, here we go. Well,
but no, and now I'm like, wow, that was really perfect timing.
What made you feel like, I mean, business is crazy. I've ran salons and team members, and you get to this place where you're just like, you don't feel like you're like, you know what? I think my time here has ended. And it's really hard for a lot of people to accept that. I mean, you had your chiropractic business where you were like, okay, I had this moment with my dad. I have to exit here. Then you go on, you build this amazing platform and community for women to really feel empowered, right? You built the stage, and you guys have all these powerful people come and share to other women to show them that it's possible. And I can only imagine like that's now part of your identity. And so what was there a specific moment, like with your dad where you're just like, you know what, like I gotta go. And like for me, there's so many times in my life where I've had pivots and I feel so strongly that I need to go. And it's so scary because you don't know what's on the other side. But in my experience, if you have faith and you just do it, doors open up. And so for me, the more I've followed that principle in my life, I'm less scared to take that leap of going into the unknown, because I'm like, you know what, God's going to show a path, or I'm going to meet people that maybe I wouldn't meet in this culture or community. So was there a moment for you? I mean, you guys built this like massive culture and community that had to be at some level. And again, you kind of skimmed over it, like, yeah, I exited. And so like, go into that. That had to be like, was it painful? Was there a moment? Was it just you and your partner just felt like your visions weren't aligned? Because so many entrepreneurs, especially like I said, I've trained thousands of hairstylists, so they go through the same thing where all of a sudden they're like, their team members' visions are shifting and there's this weird energy, and it's always kind of hard and you want to have a smooth exit. But can you touch base on that a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's really good that, what you said there, I really relate to, is just like having this deep faith. And I think that I'm not religious, but I would say I'm very spiritual. And I just have like these knowings and trust that it will figure out. And so as Natalie and I entered our 5th year, I moved to LA. So I moved to LA in 2020, 4 weeks before they closed the borders.
Oh, wow.
And then in 2021, Natalie moved to Texas. So I stayed in LA. She moved. And then when she moved, then she went on to get pregnant and she went on to have a baby too. I think our just lives, we'd always had very, very similar lives. So thought very, very similar. And I think over that period of time, we just started being different people to who had actually met initially, and just started seeing different visions for the brand and for the business. And so I really wanted the business and the brand to be a little bit like Elle magazine. Like I really wanted it to be for women and not around more personal brands. And I think Natalie just had like a different vision for that. And so initially I was actually trying to buy her out. But you know what happens when you're in like deals and there's like all these things to like, and honestly, that was probably like the hardest time in my life, trying to run businesses and do deals and negotiate all of this stuff. And we ended up flipping the deal. And so then I decided that I would go, because I really knew that we couldn't both be in it with different visions. But I also felt really strongly that the brand meant so much to me. Like I was like, look, it can't work both of us here, so I'm willing to go if we can't like figure this out. And so that's what happened.
Yeah.
Because I also had that faith too. Like I think I just knew that everything was, I always wanted to be focused on women, and I still do now. And I kind of at different stages help different women, whether it's a membership or whether it's helping them go from multiple 6 to 7 figures. Like I still do all that, and I get really, really passionate about that. But I also knew that I think I'm a big believer in like seasons in life.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe that things come in seasons. I also believe in almost like chapters. Like my chiropractic was an amazing chapter to my book. BossBabe was like an amazing chapter in my book. And it's okay that things come to an end. Like that's not a bad thing. And I think a lot of people see it as like
defeat,
ends of eras, or defeat. And I was like, no, this is like a stepping stone to me. And I had a really supportive partner, and he was like, look, you can do whatever you want to do. And for me also, just peace is a really, really big thing for me. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to step away, and what will be will be. And I had some ideas at that point, and did not have a baby on the cards. I had other business babies that I was thinking about and starting to line up. But it honestly worked out perfectly. So, but I do think a lot of people are afraid of change. And to me, change has always been like such a blessing. Like even if you don't know, where it's going to end.
Well, what's cool too is I love it. You're like, it's like an end of a chapter. Like you can't go to the next chapter if one doesn't end. And what I think is cool too is like people think like, oh, it's the end of an era. And I've looked, I mean, my husband and I taught or we're speaking on a huge event, ClickFunnels, a couple weeks ago. And we were like saying like, this isn't like an end of an era. Like if you look at the impact that you created, even inside of BossBabe, you're like, people just see the tip of the iceberg on social media. And you're like, you know what? For you to exit that and understand like what you created, like even you don't understand the people that you've impacted, right? You see the followers and the engagements and the memberships, but even like I've heard of you guys for years. Your quotes have even impacted me every morning when I'm waking up trying to get my coffee and kids out the door and all the things. So it's like I feel like when you say it's an end of a chapter, you really have to give yourself grace and gratitude that like how many women you impacted. So you kind of like skimmed over that. So I wanted to give you that kind of kudos to you of like, hey, like you moved on, but like your impact is far more than you probably even realize. So
What's funny?
go ahead.
Sorry. Just on that note, though, it's really funny because when we co-founded BossBabe, I'm like really into statistics, and I think it was like 19% of businesses in America were founded by women in like 2019, and then in like 2022, that was like up to like 40 something percent.
Oh, wow.
And so if you talk about input, I'm like, I like to think BossBabe had a big hand in that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what's cool too is like when you build something big, even if it feels like you're moving on to the next chapter, like I'm even in transition in like my brand and business. And I'm like, hey, well, if I built that and made that impact, what else can I do? You know, so it's like scary. And there's like, I always say there's like these sweaty seasons and then add kids to the mix. And you're like, what, did I do this to myself? So you have a 14-month-old, you said?
Yes.
How is that going? Because I feel, I mean, I have 4 daughters. I had 2, and then I took like an 8-year gap, and that was actually when I was like in the thick of building my brand. And then ended up, I was like, oh, I want one more. I had one more, and then had a surprise baby. And I always joke around. I'm like, how did I put myself in this mess? But I genuinely think, and I mean, just take it for somebody who's had 4 kids. I actually think it's harder to be a full-time mom than it is to like have a business and be a mom. Like my business for me is like, I love my kids. Like they're actually in the other room, so I won't speak too loudly. But like when you're passionate about what you do, I think it balances out motherhood. So talk on that. Like how has that been as being a new mom?
So I would say motherhood to me has been the easiest and the hardest thing that I've ever done. It's like weird. I'm like, how can something feel so natural, but also so challenging and relentless and tiring, but also just bring you so much love and joy? And I am 100% with you. I think stay-at-home mums are saints. It is so difficult to do. It is so much easier to be in work and have help at home. So I have so much respect for women who do that. And I also am really unapologetically in saying that is not for me. Like I knew I would never be a stay-at-home mum because I was not gifted with that patience.
And
it's like no one's self, right? And so Romeo is a little boy. He's been like the biggest blessing. I'm really blessed to have like an amazing partner in it as well. And he's taught me a lot. He's really taught me a lot about myself. Really understanding like what's important to me, what's not, really helping me understand patience and surrender and all these pieces. But it's also really reminded me of like how I get to come back to who I am and how that actually my ambition is I want him to see that. Like I want him to be able to see, you know, a mum going out to work, and that isn't, I don't think there's any right or wrong way of like whether you're one who stays at home part-time or full-time. It's just like what suits you, and I really want to be unapologetic about that. And then I think that if we go back to like how women traditionally used to have children with community, I don't have family here, neither does my partner. And so it's really been about like building community for us, like how we, whether that's paid community and like the people that come in and help us on a daily basis, or also just friends, and really finding, like I have a slightly different view than some people. And I just did not, Danielle, I did not want mummy friends who were not similar to me, because I didn't want to be guilt tripped. For me, there's 2 things that really happened with motherhood. I have been astounded. I've always come from a very like supportive community. Like I've always been like, wait, women are so supportive. Why do we just get such a bad rep sometimes? Like people are like, oh, like women can be so bitchy. And I'm like, but really, like the majority of women I make are meet are amazing. Enter motherhood world.
Yeah, yeah.
Like what goes down on some of these comments, the shame on shame of mums, I was just
Yeah.
like eye-opening. And I really think it's something that women should stop doing. Like I don't know why anyone thinks it's anyone else's business whether someone is breastfeeding to a
Right.
certain age or not. Like just leave everyone alone, let everyone do their own thing. I don't know why it's someone's business whether they co-sleep or don't co-sleep. Just like
Right.
let everyone do what works for
Moms
them.
do. They have they're very strongly opinionated how you should raise your kids, and it's like they're not your kids. They're not your lifestyle. Like whatever you're passionate and works for you, like stay in your lane. But
Exactly.
yeah.
And that has just been really mind blowing for me. And that was the one thing I was like, I am unsubscribing from mum guilt. Like, I don't want anything to do with this thing.
Yeah.
Like, let me just lead my life. And so I honestly have kind of put my head in a little bit of the sand over certain stuff. Like, I just basically made sure my algorithm did not follow like loads of mum stuff because I was just like, I don't want to feel guilty. Like the way I'm parenting is the way I'm parenting, and that is it. Like I need to feel good about it. So I was just really intentional about protecting my energy around that. Just, unfollowing, muting stuff that just didn't really,
doesn't serve you.
Yeah, it was not necessarily triggering, but it's just like if it was surrounded by lots of people that were a little bit triggered by certain stuff. So I just don't really post much mum content either because again, I just did not want to invite that into my life.
Yeah.
I also am not very thick-skinned. I gotta admit, Danielle, like I am like sensitive.
Really?
So yeah,
It's hard to not let in a comment. Like you get like 20 good comments and you get one bad one. You're like, oh, why did I read that?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, and I think that sometimes as a mom, like as a business, I'm like, okay, pretty confident in that. So like, F off if you've got anything to say.
Yeah.
Like,
Isn't that funny? You could, if they trigger you as a mom, you're like, you could say anything about how I do business. If you say something about me being a mom, you're like, oh, why? Like mom guilt's already, like, yeah. Like, it's like, we already deal with it as women anyways. Why stick a dagger in it?
yeah. So I was just like, no, I don't want to invite that into my life. So it's also why I've chosen really not to like, I put Romeo on there, but I don't really comment about any of my parenting or ask for advice on that. And so I think it was just like knowing thyself. And I just realized that actually for me to be the mom I wanted to be and show up confidently and feel good about my parenting style, it was like, I'm not sharing too much online. I'm not looking at anything online. And I'll just follow my intuition and then look things up accordingly.
Right.
And that was just how I've done it. And I feel really happy and content.
But that's good. Like you got to stay out of the stuff that doesn't serve you. I always tell people, I'm like, tunnel vision. Cause like it's hard like not to get affected by certain comments and things like that. And I will tell you too, like for me having kids, they've really helped me create boundaries for myself because there has been seasons where maybe I'm like overworking and I tell myself this is how it has to be. And then I'm like, wait, no, it doesn't. Like this is a story I'm telling myself. I needed to create better boundaries so that I'm not working these crazy hours, or whatever that looks like. And I will tell you too, I always say that mom guilt is an excuse to not exceed. And this sounds crazy because there's times in my life where I've been like, oh, I should stop working so hard or I should do this. And then I'm like, no, that's just me making excuses so I don't actually have to do the work. And so when I reframe it on myself that way, I'm like, okay, I can still go after my ambitions, but just creating boundaries while doing it, And that's been like really helpful for me and healthy, where it's like I can be a mom and I can be with my kids and all the things. How do you personally balance it with work and kids? Like for me, like I always say like I used to think it was all about time, and now I realize it's all about quality of time, right? Because there's times I'm like on my freaking phone and my daughter's like, Mommy, why are you always on your phone? I'm like, oh, you're right. So it's like creating intentional time where you're like, I'm going to take my daughter to lunch, or I'm going to take my son to the park. What do you do to make it feel like you're like, screw the mom guilt. I'm not going to deal with that. But how do you create intentional moments where you're like, in that mom role, and then you can kind of come back to business role?
So I did two things. First of all, I looked through this lens of I call it SAT, like stop, automate, delegate. So I really went through my life like what I needed to stop doing. And that might just be like stuff around the house, or that might be like you say, saying yes to things that were not really hell yeses. And so I was always a people pleaser. And so I had to really understand like when I didn't like saying no to people. And so really reverse engineering that, being like, is it an instant yes? Okay, it's not, then it is a no, versus like, oh, maybe it's not a no, so therefore it's a yes. I kind of went, is it yes? Pause, no, therefore it's a no. So that was really helpful. And then just looking in my life what I could automate and delegate. And then I do this thing called A, B, and C tasks with Romeo. So I realized there were certain things in his life that I definitely wanted to do. So for me, I love doing bedtime and bath time. Like that makes me really happy. And so those are A tasks. And then B tasks are stuff like, okay, do I really need to take him to every single class during the week
Right.
that he does? No, I don't. I like going to certain classes and I'm not really that keen on others. So I decided what were B tasks. And then C tasks were things like, okay, does his laundry need doing? Does he need to be bought new clothes? Does his, groceries and cooking his meals? And so look, I am going to be unapologetically and say, like, I have help. Like, I don't do this
Yeah.
alone, and I could not work, and I could not look after him and work. Like, I absolutely have a nanny, and I have a nanny 8 till 6 at the moment. I've done 8 till 4 before, but right now I'm in a busy season with work. So like you, I'm like, right, I'm doing 8 till 6, and then I have quality time with him either side of
Right.
that and at the weekends. But I really also just kind of decided, like, the C tasks to me around doing his laundry and shopping for his
Yeah.
clothes, they're not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would rather have quality time with him and be like, okay, let's go to the park before, we get ready for bed and do those things. And
Right.
just really minimizing my phone time around him because, like you said, sometimes before I was doing like 8 till 4 with my nanny, and then those last 2 hours, I wasn't always as present.
Right.
So I was like, might as well just do 8 to 6 and then be fully present for
Yeah.
that hour and a half before he goes to bed. But it's just really kind of creating a lot of systems around things so that when I'm with him, I'm not having to like wash dishes at the same time or clean his room at the
Right.
same time. We're just
That's it.
playing and we're like
It's fun.
interacting.
It's funny because like I always tell like for us for women, it's like a lot of times we have a hard time delegating it. But then once you're a mom, you're kind of like, oh, like this isn't a big deal. But it's funny. I was telling my husband the other day, I'm like, do guys have like dad guilt? Like, do you feel? He's like, no. And he's like, sometimes. I'm like, he's like, but I'm not gonna feel bad if somebody does my laundry. Like, I'm like, but women, we get all weird. Like we need to do like every single thing, and then it's like you're kind of short in time or whatever it is, and you're like, Kate, now it's worth delegating it or paying somebody to help. I have 2 full-time nannies and cleaners and all the things, and it took me 4 kids to figure it out. So it's important to hear like from other female entrepreneurs. It's like, yeah, like you can have it all, but you need to understand that like it takes a village to raise children. It's never like that's like truthfully that's kind of how it's always been. It's like we've always had help and that kind of things. And I don't live by my family either, which means I have to hire help that become kind of a part of the home team, and I hire people that I joke around. I tell my husband this all the time. I'm like, our nanny, her name's Dee Dee. I'm like, I actually think she's way better at disciplining than I am. Like I suck really bad. Like I was like, so we assume we're better parents. We're only going to be the only mom, but we assume we're better parents than somebody who's paid. And I'm like, Dee Dee's a better parent than me. I got to be honest. Like I'm always going to be the mom, but like I'm not great at like discipline,
Yeah,
But
we have the same joke. Like our nanny is so phenomenal. Like she is so good with children. Such a good so she teaches me so much. I feel like I'm a way better mom because she's around because I like watch what she does and I'm like, oh, this is how I discipline.
you're like,
Or,
oh
this is
yeah,
how I do it. But I actually also do believe like more women like us should be telling sharing about what help we have because I do think there's this misconception online
Right.
where women are building these huge businesses and doing everything
Yeah.
at home and they're absolutely not. Now we don't have that same thought process with a guy. We're not watching him going, oh yes, he's building this business.
Right.
I wonder who's looking after
Yeah,
his
yeah.
kids or who's
Yeah.
looking after his kids. Like we're just assuming he's not. But
Right.
I do think there is a lot. And then women unfortunately hold themselves to a completely unrealistic standard around how to be a mom and a business owner. And it's just not helpful for anyone. So yes,
Yeah.
I will say I also recognize I'm very fortunate about having help, but it also comes back to that point with what is your hourly rate in your job, in your salary,
exactly.
and therefore what proportionately can you afford to spend in the home, which allows you to do the additional things. And it's all about like doing that math. Like Dan Martell has that book, like Buy Back Your Time. I think that's a really good lesson for women around like, okay, how can you buy back the time that you would have spent doing laundry or grocery shopping?
Right.
And now as we're entering AI too, there's so
I
many
know.
different ways to automate. Like my Amazon subscriptions save me. Like I have so many things in subscriptions because it literally saves so much
So
time.
much time,
Like, I
yeah.
don't need a kitchen towel or
Yeah.
wipes or any of these
I know.
things
Remember
all
when
the
we
time.
had to
So,
physically like go to the grocery store? Now I'm like, who goes to the grocery store? That's
never.
so weird. I'm like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
But it's crazy too because I think like people will say to me all the time because they know I have a lot of kids in business. They're like, how do you do it all? And I same way. I'm like, I have cleaners, I have nannies, I have a lot of support. Like, I don't want to feel like I can't pursue my passions because of a limiting story or a belief. I'm like, no, I'm going to create this. And then in turn, your kids are going to see that, right? Your kids are going to see the impact you make and what you build. And so it's like, whatever you're passionate about is what you should go for. And I love, we kind of skimmed over, but even I sense that you kind of like letting go of Boss Babe was because your passion was going a different direction. And I genuinely believe if your heart and soul is not in something that you're selling, you can tell because it doesn't come across authentic, So you kind of like taking that turn. What are you building right now?
I fully agree with everything you just said there around like for you to be able to show up authentically. And now again, like brands are really wanting authenticity too. Like
Yeah.
people are looking for that. Like, what is that mission behind you? I became really authentic about helping women at that multiple six-figure mark already, or six figures and scaling to seven, and also the behind the scenes of marketing. For me, I was getting really frustrated with a lot of fluffy emails, a lot of, I think mindset stuff is great, but I also really wanted like tactical information. I was
Yeah.
like, who is giving tactical information? Like, who is giving like these like granular, lessons and allowing me to kind of follow in
Value.
their footsteps? And so that's what I really created. So I created a newsletter called the 2%, where I give my whole goal is for you to be able to read one newsletter and be able to apply marketing strategies in your business that are not kind of high level. They're actually like, okay, we're talking about personal branding this week. Here are 3 things that you can do this week that's going to help your personal brand grow. Or hang on a minute, this is a sales page. Like, if your sales page isn't converting, change the color of the buttons, move things above the fold, like very actionable pieces, because I did feel like the kind of landscape was getting a lot about fluff and not much good free content. So that was the first thing that I really built, and off the back of that had my mastermind. And then now I really teach women how to build memberships, because we built to 17,000 in our membership. And I do think that I also became, I don't know about you, but I love recurring revenue, because I realized that my nervous system does not do well with like erratic launches and erratic income.
It's
Like,
a safety
I like
net.
steady, like steady income that I'm optimizing every single month. I don't really big events that I'm kind of like holding my breath, hoping it does well, because like the whole year relies on this. Like, that's not how I function. And
Right.
so for me, I'm like a marathon runner. I just like slow, steady, but we're keeping going. And so I really wanted to build my business around evergreen. I really wanted to build like reoccurring revenue, so I knew what was coming in every single month, and I could try and beat it. And so now I also teach women how to do that, how to build memberships that kind of support their lifestyle and a little bit more of a natural.
Could it be a membership with like anything? Like, say you have a hairstylist. Say you have a hairstylist that comes in and she's like, I have a training program. Like, how do I optimize this?
Exactly that. So anything but not products. We don't do physical products.
Okay.
Because I think that's kind of a different beast with regards to like how you set up subscriptions, etc. So anything digital, anything that whether it's a program, whether it's templates, whatever that is, whether it's a membership. A lot of people also don't know, they sell these programs which are like one-time offers, and they could actually be turning that into yearly reoccurring revenue.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to be doing it that way.
Yeah.
So I really try and share a lot of the lessons that I learned over like 10 years in this field, being like, okay, if I was to have my time again, what would I do differently?
Yeah.
And certainly as we BossBabe sold a lot of one-time programs, I would have probably turned those into like yearly programs that are community driven as well.
Yeah.
And so that's what I kind of really try and impart the wisdom and like the mistakes I made, so that people don't have to make
Well, I do think it's like that monthly reoccurring revenue that does the best. I've done a lot of like high ticket, and it was like a learning lesson for me, because made like a shit ton of money real quick, but then you have all the fulfillment, right? And so it's like, it's all about that like reoccurring revenue that really gives you like that safety net. Now I have like my hairline that's like my reoccurring revenue, where I'm like, okay, I can go try this, and I'm not panicked if this event doesn't work out or whatever. So you have anybody who you can come in and give them like a customized approach, or do you do like group training?
Yeah, so we have like it's called Rise. We have a full curriculum, and then we do coaching with inside it. So
Mm.
you're getting lots of like one-to-one access with us, lots of group access as well. We have coaches in there, we're running calls, but it's basically taking you through a specific way, not just a diet. So you don't even have to have anything initially. We can help you decide who you're selling to, what you're selling, and then we actually
Mm.
teach a sales funnel, because I think the biggest thing, and a lot of people teach emails and webinars and all
Mm-hmm.
of this stuff, but it's actually really hard for beginners
Mm.
to get their head around that. So we actually teach a conversation funnel, which can take place in DMs, and that's how we
Mm.
teach how to sell people, because it's so much easier, particularly if you're a beginner coming out the gate.
Right.
And now lots of people don't have the time to sit on an hour-long or 90-minute webinars. They want like or
Yeah.
free training. They want something different. So we really try to create something, and we offer actually a ROI guarantee on our stuff. Like we
Mm.
don't want to be, we don't want people paying to work investing with us if they're not getting results.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another thing that we were really passionate about, around doing that. And funny enough, I actually co-founded that business with Amy, a lady called Amy. She actually used to work with us in growth at BossBabe. So it's funny,
Oh,
I
okay.
teamed up with her, and we create that product together, to bring more people and just kind of share a little bit of different ways of doing that. Because like you said, once you know what's coming in every month, you can
Mm-hmm.
help with that. It helps with your hiring, it helps with your
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle approach. Like you're not this like nervous ball of like
Right.
energy all the
You
time.
can
So like, wait,
create.
what is happening this
Yeah.
month? I can't increase my lifestyle because I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm going to be earning XYZ. And so that was really important for me personally to
Mm.
build into my life. And so then I was like, how do I bring that into other people's?
Is it like mostly like educational products that you help build them out?
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll have to pick your brain after this show.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no. There's so many cool things that you can do
Yeah.
these days, and now with AI coming in as well, there's like even better ways to leverage
I
stuff.
know.
I think.
Me and Chat GPT every morning, we have a great conversation.
No, it's so good. I just discovered Cloud as well. I don't
Oh
know if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
abroad, however I want to say it, but yeah, that's another one that's amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Super
So if
cool.
people want to come be a part of your programs, where do they want to go?
So easiest way, I'm on LinkedIn and
Okay.
Instagram. So easiest way, if you want to get on the newsletter, just DM me 2%, just like number 2 and then a percentage mark, and
Mm.
that'll help you get onto the newsletter. And then if you want any information, actually, I'll give you guys a freebie. If you message me
Cool.
MG, so M for mother, G for giraffe, I actually have a 19-page document,
Oh,
which
cool.
will teach you exactly about how to grow a membership. So everything's free in there
Okay,
as
cool.
well, which can kind of give
And where
you
do they go for that one again?
just DM me
Okay.
MG or write it on one of my
You're like, Danielle,
posts.
just DM me. I'm like, yeah, hey.
Everyone's like DMing me
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these things. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, which one do you want first?
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on the show today and picking your brain and other. My dogs are literally like barking in the background here. Like I said, my house is a shit show half the time when I have 4 daughters and 2 dogs. Amber, who helps me run the podcast, she's literally chasing my doodle around right now. I love it.
Wait, I love this. This is
I know.
you know what that is, Danielle? It's a house full of love.
Yeah,
Love and
it's,
chaos.
I'll
It's a good
take.
mix.
I say it's a shit show, but love. I'll take that. That sounds much better. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to connecting with you in the future. And you guys, if you are watching the shit show and the dogs bark, I hope you got a ton of value in this show. Share it with your friends. That's like one of the reasons that I do this is I want to bring people on the show that you maybe connect with, but really it comes with sharing it with somebody that you think will find value in it. And also, hopefully Danielle just dropped like a kind of drop kicked you to like start something. Like life's too short to kind of sit on the sidelines. And I always say, if you have this gut feeling like you need to go, you don't always have to have the path perfectly created for you. You just have to have the faith and make the decision to actually make it happen. So Danielle, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm sure we'll connect at some point. If you're in Miami, let me know. We'll connect. We'll take the kids to the park or something. But thank you. It's so fun to get to know you and talk with you a little bit more.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.